everyone, it's Sid from Cool Movie Gram, your source for everything about cool movies. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for further movie related content. And also I'd like to say thank you for those people who have recently subscribed to me. I've actually kind of bumped it up to 50, which is halfway to my first target, which is I want to get to 100, but I've managed to get to 50, which is halfway there. So I'm kind of glad. Thank you for all those who have actually taken part. And of course, the competition for the Armor of God Blu-ray is still running. So yep, all you have to do is go to the unboxing video and just leave your comment. Let me know what your favorite Jackie Chan stunt is. And yeah, today, well, we're going to be discussing, well, there's some good news first. I'm actually excited about the fact that there's a movie called Evil Dead Rise coming out, which is on the HBO Max format. But maybe we might get it released in the cinemas for the UK, or maybe anywhere else that doesn't have the platform of HBO Max. The film is directed by Lee Cronin, who's actually directed the Hole in the Ground. He's actually wrote the film as well. It stars Alyssa Sutherland and Lily Sullivan as two sisters who are surviving and trying to protect their family from deadites. And I'm really stoked about this because it's Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell are serving as executive producers, and it's another Evil Dead movie. I'm hoping that Bruce Campbell can actually be in this film as well. I'll be jumping for joy if that is the case. So if he makes an appearance as Ash, and that'll be awesome. I'm so excited about this, and because Evil Dead 2 is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, and I love all the Evil Dead films so far, which is Evil Dead 1, 2, Army of Darkness, and even the reboot, which was in 2013. I thought that was great. And I'm also a fan of the Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is actually a really funny and awesome TV show. And one thing I do hope that they actually stick to what they did with the 2013 reboot, which is just stay with practical effects and no CGI blood, because that's what actually made the last Evil Dead reboot look really good as well, because they didn't resort to using CGI blood or CGI effects. They actually used prosthetics and practical effects, which actually looked much more impressive. And that's was the charm of the original. So I'm kind of excited. I mean, that's one of the horror movies that I'm actually really, really looking forward to. And yeah, I hope that this leads to more. I mean, this should kind of spark off something that people are interested in seeing horror movies or even anything else with a lot more practical effects rather than just the lazy option, which tends to be CGI. I mean, we see there's way too many CGI-based movies that are being made these days. And yeah, and the other, I kind of see it as bad news. Maybe some people might be interested by that. Netflix are looking to produce a reboot or remake of The Raid. I mean, Gareth Evans is involved as maybe an executive or a producer, as well as Michael Bay. And it's going to be directed by Patrick Hughes, who is director of Expendables 3, which I personally think is the weakest out of all of the Expendable films. And I just don't think, why would they want to remake something? I mean, I personally think, for me, The Raid and The Raid 2 are both probably one of the most iconic action films of the 21st century, and definitely of the last decade. I mean, very few films come close. I mean, come on, you can always come up with something original. I mean, why do you think there's films like John Wick being made and so on and so forth? Then they are people who have actually got great great ideas, and you just need to kind of bring them out. That's all that needs to be done. I mean, I'm thinking this is just such a lazy option. I mean, not all remakes are going to be as decent as The Departed was. I mean, that's a remake of Infernal Affairs. Infernal Affairs is a hell of a lot better, but I thought Departed was actually quite an enjoyable film. I mean, then again, that's Scorsese. It's not his best film, but hey, you know, it works. And, okay, now it's the main reason as to why this video was made. Now, over the last week, end of last week, it was Sammo Hung's birthday. He's 70 years old, so we've had 7 decades of Sammo Hung. Now, Sammo Hung, he is a very accomplished and very revered actor, director, fight choreographer, stunt coordinator who's been working in Hong Kong cinema since the 1960s, pretty much. He started off as an extra. I mean, he came from the Yu Jim Yoon Peking Opera Academy, which also had people like Jackie Chan. There was Yuen Bu and Corey Yuen, who had actually done the fight choreography for films like Romeo Must Die, the X-Men movies, and most of Jet Li's American movies as well, and a lot of other classic Hong Kong movies too. And so Sammo Hung had actually kind of worked his way up the ranks. He had actually become not just a great, but a very successful actor. He started off playing like negative roles or supporting roles in a lot of Angela Mao movies. And then he had also kind of branched out into being a leading man and also a director, starting in 1977 with his Iron Fist Monk. And as his career kind of progressed, he just became a much better, more accomplished filmmaker, making some of the best films ever. Now, this is my list. Now I'm going to be doing 10 movies, going through them. I've got them written down over here right now as well. I'm just going to be telling you which of these films he has starred in all these movies. He's directed most of these films as well. And this is my top 10 of like Sammo Hung movies, which I recommend that you would watch. Now, number 10 is Heart of the Dragon. Now, this is it's a 1985 film which was directed by Sammo Hung. It stars Jackie Chan and also Sammo Hung as two brothers, where Sammo Hung is a mentally challenged man in his late 20s, early 30s, who's dependent on his younger brother, who's a police officer. And it's just the dynamic of the relationship of the brothers, and it's put to the test, especially when gangsters are involved and he witnesses a crime and he gets embroiled in this whole kind of mess, and it kind of leads to Jackie Chan's character trying to save his brother, which might put his career on the line as well. This film, it was, the Japanese cut of this film actually had 2 additional fight sequences. There isn't that many fight sequences in this film, but the ending was definitely possibly one of the best like Jackie Chan fight scenes ever. The fight scenes were actually choreographed by Yuen Bu, who would normally feature in a lot of these films. And strange enough, this is one of the films that Sammo Hung did not really do any martial arts in this. He was playing like a mentally challenged kind of an adult who has like more or less the mentality and the thought process of a child. I mean, his best friends are children in this movie as well. He's kind of like very kind of like convincing in it. His performance is just what stands out, as great as the action sequences and everything else are in this film. But it was Sammo Hung's performance which kind of like which stood out of everything, and it proved that he's just not just some fat funny kung fu man. That's it. And number 9 is Touch and Go, which is a Ringo Lam film, which is from 1991, where Sammo Hung plays a small-time chef who witnesses the murder of a police officer, and the triads are trying to silence him, and he doesn't want to kind of get involved, but then eventually is pushed to kind of just fight back. And yeah, this is pretty much just standard, like what you'd expect from Ringo Lam. Very dark, nihilistic kind of feel to it. It doesn't have the very kind of cheerful lightheartedness that you would expect, or the kind of like just the exaggerated kind of like action that you would expect from a normal Sammo Hung film. But again, this was actually another standout film because he played a very low-key character. He was not exactly like a comedic type of character. He was just someone who you kind of feel sorry for in the situation. And there are some fight sequences and action, but the action's not as stylized. And there's not like a lot of kind of kung fu based kind of fight sequences for Sammo Hung. It just seems very kind of like naturalistic and very gritty and raw, which is, if you've seen a lot of other Ringo Lam films, the action a lot of the time does seem like the people involved are actually getting hurt, and Sam and Ringo loves to kind of, he used to love filming people just in anguish. This stunt that this action sequence that the people are involved in, it actually looked like it did hurt. Number 8 is Millionaires Express, one of his finest directed films, definitely. It's where he's playing a swindler who ends up coming back to his hometown and tries to kind of make things right by stopping a train full of wealthy aristocrats and business people and such, to stop at his small town to boom the economy. But then that attracts the attention of bandits who are after a map to the Terracotta Army. And this film is like, it's literally very kind of typical Chinese New Year fare that you would expect from the 80s, where it's got like an abundance of stars and like who's who of Hong Kong cinema, apart from Jackie Chan. Maybe there was an argument between them, or it probably could have been because of the Armor of God incident that took place, and Jackie was left in the hospital. But yeah, it's full of some of the great like on-screen fighters, people such as Hwang Jung-lee's in this, Richard Norton, Cynthia Rothrock, Yun Bu's in it as well as one of the main characters. You got Dick Wei, and just a plethora of all these great performers, including the Shaw Brothers regular Seal Ho, and yeah, it's just full of amazing action sequences, the stunts, and it has this very kind of like big kind of John Ford Western type of feel to it. And Sammo Hung did a great job, and the fact is, it is definitely one of the most kind of like, it slaps hard. This movie slaps. It's just absolutely incredible. Number 7 is Warriors 2. Yeah, this is a film which stars, of course, Sammo Hung, stars Casanova Wong and Lung Ka-yan, aka Brian Lung, Beardy. And it tells the story of Chan Wa-shun, who was actually Ip Man's Ip Man's actual teacher in real life. He taught the real Ip Man Wing Chun. It's like about his story, how he learns Wing Chun from Leung Chan, played by Lung Ka-yan, and Sammo Hung plays a fellow disciple of Leung Chan named Ya Chun. And yeah, it's just a great movie. It's a very kind of like typical old school kung fu comedy, where it's kind of like full of vengeance, corruption, intrigue around a small town in Foshan. And yeah, it's just got some of, again, I mean, being that it's a Sammo Hung movie, it's full of like so many great stars, including the late Fung Hock An as the villain. You have Dean Shik, and also appearances by Leung Ka-ying. It's just definitely, when it comes to like one of the Wing Chun movies, this is definitely, I mean, it's a masterpiece. And this, along with The Prodigal Son, are going to be released by Eureka this month shortly on Blu-ray, and I'm so excited. I've already got the pre-order, and I'm really looking forward to it. Number 6, sorry, is Encounters of the Spooky Kind. Yeah, this is actually, as the title suggests, it has a kind of like, it's a kung fu comedy with the supernatural twist kind of exploring the whole kind of like Chinese black magic and Chinese tall tales about a man who's framed for murder of his wife, who was actually cheating on him, and then kind of finds out that there were supernatural elements at work with a crooked black magic priest. And definitely, again, this has some of like possibly the best like weapon based and even kind of like just hand to hand combat. It was just, the fight sequences are great, but then also the visuals that were used, the practical effects, very kind of like inspired by Raimi's Evil Dead. This kind of like, I think, came out maybe a year or two around about the same time that the Evil Dead was being made. So the practical effects looked really kind of impressive for a movie. I think it was 81 that this film came out in, and it was just amazing. This kind of like set the way for like other horror comedies, especially the very kind of like influential Mr. Vampire, which was produced by Sammo Hung. That was a result of maybe the success of Encounters of the Spooky Kind, which was released as Spooky Encounters on VHS in the UK back in the 80s. And number 5, Prodigal Son. I mean, what can be said about this film? Yeah, which is kind of a prequel to Warriors 2, because this came out in 1982, I believe. And yeah, it stars Yun Bu as Lung Jan, who's an arrogant kind of hothead who's put in his place after facing Lung Yi Tai, and is adamant of learning Wing Chun. Now, Sammo Hung in this plays a supporting role who's actually really funny. He just makes an entrance halfway through the movie, but he's playing Wong Hua Po, who's one of Lung Jan's teachers, who teaches him a more offensive style of Wing Chun in comparison to Lung Yi Tai's internal style of Wing Chun. And he's just really funny. I mean, what I loved about this Sammo Hung's character is just the kind of like the comical interplay that he has with Lam Ching Ying's character, and of course the whole kind of the interplay with his daughter and Yun Bu's character Lung Jan. And it all kind of fits in perfectly. And then again, I mean, this is definitely one of Sammo Hung's like best directed kung fu movies, and he just absolutely nails the floor. I mean, the fight choreography was great, and definitely this is a masterpiece of martial arts, without a doubt. Definitely one of the best martial arts movies made of all time. I mean, even if you watch it now, you could still appreciate the amazing choreography and the way that the film was directed by Sammo Hung. And even his performance and everyone else's performance is just absolutely incredible. And then number 4, we have Painted Faces. And this is, again, he didn't direct this movie. This was directed by I think it's Dennis Law, the guy's name. I can't remember for the life of me. And this one, it's not a kung fu movie. It's a drama. Sammo Hung plays the role of his real life master, Master Yun, who's teaching these kids at the Peking Opera Academy. And it kind of shows the whole kind of what they had actually gone through. So it's more or less a kind of a very toned down version of the childhood of Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and Yun Bu. And it's more about their master, where Sammo Hung gives definitely one of the best like acting performances of his career. You also have Cheng Pei Pei, who features in the Shaw Brothers classics, Come Drink With Me, and also films such as Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, in a dramatic role. And definitely this is a really well made movie. I mean, my son, who's 14 years old, he doesn't normally watch many Hong Kong movies. I remember when this was on Netflix, I actually put it on. He was really intrigued about this movie, and like I thought the child actors, especially the ones that were playing Big Nose, aka Jackie Chan, and the one playing Sammo, they did really well in this as well. Even the teenage, the characters that played the teenage versions of these characters, they did really good in this film too. They were absolutely amazing. I mean, this was well directed, well written, and when asked about this film, I mean, Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan had said that it's a very toned down version of the real events that happened. They said that if they had actually shown what had really happened, the film would have had a very high, rating, and their master Yu Jim-yoon, would have been done for child cruelty. Then number 3 is Pedicab Driver, which is of another film directed by Sammo Hung, where he stars as a pedicab driver, set in like 30s or such, 30s or 40s. And him and his friend, they both fall in love with 2 women, and both of them have evil bosses. One of them turns out to be a prostitute, and and Sammo and his friend, played by Max Mock, aka Mock Seo Chung, have to do their best to save the loves of their lives. And it's a very silly kind of movie in terms of like the comedy and such, but when it comes to like the fight choreography in this, it's just absolutely incredibly just bonkers. It's absolute bonkers. The fight, definitely some of the best fight scenes. Now, it's a shame because this film is very hard to get hold of, because Warner Brothers have just been kind of like sitting on this film in terms of their in their archive, like they have with a bunch of other Hong Kong movies. But it's got some really great movies. This is one of the films which also features Nina Lee, who plays his love interest, aka Mrs. Jet Li. And definitely, and the fight sequence, especially the end, is just some absolutely incredible fight choreography, and it's just full on. It just looks like some of the hits that these guys were taking, especially his fight scene with Billy Chow. I mean, the guy's just eating as the other guys are just getting beaten up, and you can tell him he's just there, he's just trying to enjoy his meal. But eventually it ends up where when he gets up, he's just kind of, it's all out, definitely. And one of the highlights of the film was the late great Pops, aka Lau Kar Leung, has a cameo where he as a casino boss / gangster, and him and Sammo Hung have a kind of a contest, a fight sequence where they kind of like test their hand-to-hand skills, and also using the staff or the pole. And it's absolutely one of the best fight scenes ever. Okay, number 2 is The Magnificent Butcher, directed by Yuen Woo-ping, and it's kind of like a spin-off of the Drunken Master film, directed by Yuen Woo-ping, which starred Jackie Chan, and where Sammo Hung plays a disciple of Wong Fei Hung named Lam Sai Wing, who was a real person who had actually brought the Hong Kong style to Hong Kong, and who's a butcher by trade, and he's always getting into troubles, and his nickname is Porky Wing. And he eventually ends up getting framed for murder, and also offending a rival martial arts master. And definitely, this is one of some of the best fight sequences in terms of, well, Yunbu versus Lam Jing-ying. That fight itself is kind of like worth a video itself, but then the film throughout has some incredible training sequences. I mean, the movie itself, fans of Drunken Master definitely would love this movie. And Sammo Hung just does some absolute amazing choreography, mixed as well as Yuen Woo-ping. They both actually choreographed this movie. And this kind of like pretty much, it just encapsulates what greatness Sammo Hung was destined for. This film came out in 1979, being that it was actually kind of in production for a whole year, due to the fact that the director Yuen Woo-ping's father, Simon, Yun Siu-tun, had actually passed away, because he was going to reprise his character of Burger So, aka Sam Seed, from the original Drunken Master. But he had passed away whilst they were making this film. Then he was replaced by Fan Mei Sheng, who did a pretty good job too. And he was actually quite kind of jovial in his portrayal. He was quite entertaining, and he was quite convincing in terms of like some of the action sequences too. And yeah, this is definitely, this is one of like, I would say, a standout kung fu movie from Sammo Hung. And before the number one spot, we're going to have some honorable mentions, which are Winners and Sinners, um, Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon, Odd Couple, and I would say films like Dragons Forever, Wheels and Mules, Project A. Again, all great movies. But this is kind of a list which are more predominantly more Sammo Hung focused movies, not just movies that he's done with like Jackie Chan, which are more Jackie Chan types and such. But this is what my list is now. My number one movie, my favorite Sammo Hung movie, I would say one that is I would recommend to anyone, is Eastern Condors from 1987, which again is directed by Sammo Hung again, and it stars Sammo Hung, Yuen Bu, Lam Ching Ying, Yuen Wah, his current wife Joyce Godinzi, and a plethora again of many amazing performers, including Dick Wei and also Yusaki Kurata, who had also featured in Millionaires Express, and had also featured Sammo Hung in Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars. I mean, this film itself is about set in the 70s after the Vietnam War, where prisoners of Chinese and Vietnamese descent are given a chance for their freedom. What they have to do is assist the military, go back to Vietnam, and destroy a cache of arms and nuclear weapons, which the United States Army had left, did not get rid of before leaving Vietnam. And this is Sammo Hung at his best in terms of, he had actually lost a lot of weight for this film just so he could perform a lot more of the actual stunts that were a lot more difficult himself, although he did use doubles in some of the shots. But he did. I mean, he had some great stunt work. I mean, the fight scenes are just like full-blooded and really aggressive. I mean, this film was initially supposed to have been another Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and Yuen Bu movie, but Sammo Hung had actually, well, there may have been some sort of tension. That what we don't know what one of the renditions is that it makes perfect sense is because after the Armor of God incident, Golden Harvest heads such as Raymond Chow and Leonard Ho, they weren't really too confident in sending Jackie Chan abroad after Armor of God. They're saying that you just kind of like narrowly escaped death, so why don't you kind of like stick home and do something a bit more local. And then also at the same time, Jackie Chan was like, this film seems a bit too violent for me, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to kind of do well or even fit in. Which is why Jackie Chan had actually done Project A Part 2 without Sammo Hung and Yuen Bu. And then when they did return after filming Eastern Condors, which was actually shot in the Philippines, they'd actually filmed Dragons Forever. But you know, I mean, just has got some amazing fight sequences. I mean, both Sammo Hung and Yuen Bu did some amazing fight scenes and choreography, and even the action sequence itself are just like really good quality. I mean, there's the sets involved and the fact that they use some of the locations in the Philippines, and some of it looks just like pretty much Vietnam in the 70s. The locale, the cinematography, everything was just, again, definitely my favorite Sammo Hung movie, and I would definitely recommend this to anyone. Most fans of Hong Kong cinema are more or less aware of this film, and fans of Sammo Hung are aware of this film, maybe all of these films, but I would also highly recommend this one to fans of action cinema. It really is a testament of the kind of movies that were being made in the golden era of Hong Kong cinema, where you had companies such as Golden Harvest, you had Cinema City, Film Workshop, you had directors like Sammo Hung, Jackie Chan, Yuen Bu, people like John Woo and Choi Hark, Ringo Lam. It's just, there was a plethora of talent and great filmmakers making great movies with some really good stars. Yeah, well, I guess that's about it, really. That's more or less my video on this movie and on this kind of subject matter. So that was my take. So, anyways, thanks for watching. And again, if you're new here, you can subscribe. And thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.